Hello there, my name's Adam Lindsay, and thank you for attending the webinar today. We're going to look at saving time and money using automation in screening, and we'll go through that. I've got about 10 years experience with background screening, so feel free to ask any questions at the end. But let's go through what we can do today and talk a little bit about background screening and Access. As you probably know, Access Group have lots of different pieces of software all across the recruitment industry. Specifically, Access Screening is designed to help agencies and corporate clients alike with their onboarding and vetting. And this isn't just to push the software that we've had, it's to give you some information about the industry, let you look at the systems that we've got in place, and give you some advice and takeaways that you can have to improve your process, or maybe just things to think about and things to take away as you go forward. So let's crack on. So we'll start with the challenges and trends that affect how you screen your candidates. I think it's different across every business, but ultimately we're looking for the most efficient onboarding journey for a candidate from application through to placement. And with that comes lots of different intricacies to take note of. Perhaps your ATS, your screening, perhaps your CRM at the other end. Screening for me would form part of an effective onboarding journey and allows you to place candidates confidently, knowing they've got the right set of skills, so protecting your agency and also giving your clients the best possible level of service. You want to keep the time to hire as quick as possible. You want to make sure they're compliant, have the right skill set to become an asset to an organisation, and understanding the different struggles that the departments face is part of that. Are you automating? Have you got manual processes? Is there lots of admin involved? We try and answer those problems, but we need the input of people to manage that process. So there's a good starting point there. We'll look at how you create efficiency across the board using our systems and different things you can do from that. We'll look at the different industry trends, and then we'll talk a little bit about screening as well. For me, screening's changed over the years. Gone are the days where it's just a simple managed service provider. Organisations looking to keep things in-house or work with different kind of partners, recruitment agencies, RPOs. I've seen a big shift to corporate clients working with their trusted recruitment partner to carry out vetting as well, because it does form part of a joined up journey for recruitment for the candidates and for organisations as well. So we'll look at that as we go along, and we'll see if we can help you, even if it's just the advice or the systems that we look at. I'm sure you'll take some things away from today. So challenges in the industry at the moment, there has been a talent shift. Obviously, we won't dwell too much on the global pandemic because we've all talked about it a great deal. Prior to it, we were at the lowest level of unemployment that we'd seen for a very long time. Obviously, things have changed slightly, and the job market will be affected undoubtedly by the pandemic, which means that with the talent that you've got, there might be a bigger pool. So getting the right candidates with the right skill set, the right background history to become an asset to organisation is even more important. And you need to differentiate between one candidate to the next. So having tools and systems to do this is important. So we've got to keep an eye on how the market's going. Ideally, things will pick up hugely. We are seeing trends that things are getting a little bit more back to normal post-lockdown, but we've got to keep monitoring the process as we go along. Candidates now have a lot of information available to them: LinkedIn, Glassdoor, social media coming out of our ears. When it comes to choosing a place that they want to work, if they've got the right skills and assets, I think there's more options for them. So you as an agency want to stand out, have the best process. Your clients want to stand out, have the best process and attract candidates. You want to make sure that candidates are aware of where they're up to in every stage of any process. Every type of employee and every candidate has a different approach. So you need to be able to be flexible and robust at the same time to adhere to what different pools of candidates need and want across the board. Millennials will differ from Generation X. Older candidates might have different expectations as well. As long as you've got tools and systems and understanding in place across your agency, and that's what you do at the end of the day, it's your bread and butter. You can put policies in place to protect yourself, to enhance the way you work, ultimately grow revenue, but also support an effective onboarding journey for your clients and your candidates across the board. What we want to try and do is get candidates going through the process quickly. So we want to make sure that there's no unnecessary manual admin tasks, that candidates are engaged, that communication is at the best level as well. And really, these are common challenges across the board. So we'll go through these things, but just bear in mind, everybody's different, but there are challenges for recruiters, both internal and through agencies as well. And having the best process and practice in place, perhaps using systems or your own manual processes, is important. Getting your policies right, getting your structure right, and delivering that program across the board. Now, background screening is relevant across every single industry. So whether you're specialised in a certain vertical, or whether you're a broader approach, from every single person in the UK who is employed will go through a set of compliance, be it a right to work check or referencing, or perhaps you're in a regulated environment where you need criminal record checks or data checks for finance. It's every single UK employee will go through a certain set of screening across every single industry, and it's probably more prominent than people realise. So there's an opportunity from an agency perspective to add value to your clients, but there's also an opportunity to grow revenue potentially if you offer screening to your clients as well. So it is a really relevant, possibly overlooked area in the past. Some of the consequences are quite severe, but let's give it the importance it needs as part of the onboarding journey. Now, across the industry, there are some typical reasons why organisations screen. This isn't an exhaustive list, but these are probably the core areas, but there will be other things that pop up as well. Now, of course, we want to make sure the candidate experience is the best possible. Is it a joined up journey from their application through to placement? Do they know exactly where they're up to? Do they know what they need to provide? Do they know what's expected of them? Are they impressed by the way that you put across your vetting and your onboarding? And does it show you in the right light? You want to make sure that candidates have the best experience themselves, but they've also got the right experience for the job, the right set of skills, the right set of qualifications to become an asset to the organisation and not put anybody at risk. Of course, with that comes complying with legislation. Every industry, every organisation in the UK will have different compliance across that business. You might have a finance department who are governed by the FCA. There might be certain areas where you're dealing with sensitive data and you might need to look at BPSS. Ultimately, understand what you need, and then you can then try and comply with the law, be it the Home Office or be it the DBS. But that's why people tend to screen, is to comply with law as well. Of course, you want to protect the business. You've got the obvious ones, looking at reputation, but perhaps processes internally, employees and stakeholders and customers alike. You want to protect every person in the chain with the business and the stakeholders that are involved. You want to improve your quality of hire, as I've said before, the right skills to become an asset to the organisation, but also improving that process, making sure it's as efficient and as speedy as it can be to make sure candidates are getting placed without delay. And then when they are placed, there isn't a massive risk that they're going to cause detriment to an organisation. Of course, you can't get rid of every bad apple, but you can do what you can to make sure that a candidate is minimising a risk to your clients and also to your own organisation if you're using this internally to screen your candidates. And as I mentioned before, safeguarding reputation is important, but also on the same token, if you think every interaction with a referee and candidate is a chance to promote your brand, if you are doing that and you've got slick systems in the background that show you for the organisation you are forward thinking and proactive, then perhaps it's not just a negative. You can enhance your reputation at the same time. So there's some core reasons to screen. There will be more, but ultimately for me, it's about creating a holistic view of a candidate's background, so that you can deliver a candidate or onboard a candidate yourself that's going to do what they said they do and they are who they say they are as well. Just to focus on if things do go wrong, look, it happens regularly. There's often cases that come into the press. I deal with some escalations myself that I often find quite surprising. There's some big ones that we've seen in the industry, large recruitment agencies where they'd employed a senior director, not done their due diligence with their checks, that then caused issues of theft and fraud. Now, it's not to say that this person wouldn't have done that, but had the checks been done in the first place, perhaps they wouldn't have got through the process and not left the organisation at risks. It can be more severe as well. People with criminal backgrounds that haven't been checked, that have committed heinous and severe crimes, that have then gone on to reoffend whilst in another position. Again, corners may have been cut and checks not been done for process and speed, but actually the risk someone coming to your door that you trust has been vetted and isn't going to cause you a risk, can go wrong. So whatever level it is, it can cause harm to your reputation, your customers, your stakeholders. Just make sure you've got the right process in place to protect the organisation. So when we're looking at creating efficiency and making sure your checks are thorough, it is important to look at process really, and whether you're outsourcing, whether you're keeping it in-house. You need to understand what you're screening for, the consequence of failures, why you're screening for your clients. Is it relevant for the candidates? Not too in depth. It isn't the Spanish Inquisition after all, but you do want to ask the relevant questions, but you don't want to scare them off. So it's about getting the right balance, knowing if things go wrong, what will happen, what candidates are expecting, what clients are expecting as well, keeping your policies up to date as well, and where possible, automate some of the processes and get rid of the manual tasks. It's almost like a sales job, chasing a reference. And of course, agencies have used reference collecting as a means of getting a potential lead, but perhaps this time could be spent more efficiently using automated processes for that. Candidates themselves, when applying for roles, they will abandon complex applications where possible. So making it easy for the candidate and simple and straightforward might differentiate you from getting that one candidate who took the course of least resistance to make sure that they to fill in their application. So make it simple, easy, clear with your policies, make it sure it's understood across your organisation and with your clients as well. Make sure candidates know what they're doing, and make sure that your process is as smooth as possible, and you reduce any admin along the way. There are lots of different ways to screen candidates. We've put 3 here. These are broadly the way it does work. Of course, you can keep things entirely in-house. Right? For corporate clients, this is often what they've done, and you might find your clients often engage this way if you start asking these questions. And it might be that your agency has a manual process for that as well. You can collect right-to-work documentation yourself. You can go to the DBS yourself. It gives you more control. However, lack of integration into third-party systems can leave gaps in process, can leave paper trails and audit trails that aren't as watertight as they need to be, which can leave you open to risk. So if you are going to do it manual, make sure you've got everything that you need and everything documented so that you can create a good candidate file, a good audit process and trail behind every action, and that if you need information, if you're audited in any way, you can pull off compliance packs really easily and straightforward. Of course, the other option is to fully outsource. We actually have partners who use our system to run vetting businesses. So if ever that was an option and you didn't want to bring things in-house, we could talk to you with that. I think outsourcing in the past, so the traditional models, I think there's been holes in there, and I would hope they're picking things up at the moment. It can be it will be a more expensive process than keeping it in-house or certainly automating. Sometimes the candidate experience can be a little disjointed and they feel like they're being investigated from an outside body. So if you are going to outsource, make sure you're choosing a trusted partner who works with you and understands what you're trying to achieve through the process. Efficiency will be improved, of course. You lack a little bit of control in terms of reporting and knowing exactly where candidates are up to and understanding your way of screening. So outsourcing is great, but make sure that they've got the right tools to build your process in there. You don't want candidates to feel disjointed. You don't want yourselves to feel disjointed. You need to deliver what you say it's going to deliver when you say it's going to deliver it as well, so you can be accountable to your clients and your candidates too. The third way is automation. And actually, you can have a mixture of both, really. If you're using a system yourself and using your own experience, effectively, you've got the same tools as an outsourcing organisation. Automation will get rid of the admin-heavy tasks, will give you links into third-party providers and assimilate the information for you, allowing you to do what you do best, which is making decisions on candidates and getting through the process as simply and as easy as possible. I've seen changes over the years from when I started working in vetting to now, where shifts in working with agencies and trusted partners are more relevant. The bigger vetting providers out there perhaps maybe got complacent and delivered incomplete files and didn't do what they were needing to do in certain instances. So there was a gap in the market, which has led for an approach for tech, but also for looking for different trusted partners. So they're the options in the market. Depends how you want to do things. It might be a mixture of all 3. But just make sure you've got the right things to protect and promote your business across the way. So how do we know what to screen for? There's some different tools that you can look at. A good place to start is to check identity, ensure a candidate is who they say they are, get the relevant documents you need, perhaps use electoral roll data as well to confirm a candidate is exactly who they say they are. Things have changed with the pandemic. You can do things more digitally. The traditional methods you can use through our system and any other system as well, but it is built to allow you to collect digital copies of information as and when you need it. But a good starting point, know the candidate is who they say they are, and then you can start to verify to see if they've done what they say they've done as well. With identity comes right to work. Of course, identity goes hand in hand with compliance checks like DBS and credit. Right to work is probably the biggest area of threat, because every single employee needs this. You leave yourself open to fines, potential prison sentences. And actually the process is quite simple and straightforward, but outside of recruitment and HR and maybe legal, I think understanding can be limited. So make sure you get your process right, that you're adhering to the Home Office list, that you're following the process to get a statutory legal defence. Make sure that candidates know the process, make sure you're doing it before they start, and of course you can't outsource this responsibility. We'll focus on right to work in a little bit, but ID and right to work, before you get anywhere, if you're confirming this, it's a great way to sift out candidates before doing any further checks. But if you get it right and get it right first time, minimises disruption, protects the organisation, it gives you a full audit trail behind every process. So we'll look into that as we go along. Then when we look a little bit further into other checks, you've got things like criminal checks of every level, basic through to enhanced, PVGs if in Scotland, Access and I for Northern Ireland. But whatever level of role you need, whether it's a regulator environment for those with working with children or vulnerable adults, or you've got a client governed by the FCA, there's a criminal check suitable for that. Basic disclosures are often done now as a test of honesty and integrity. You might ask a question, have you had any criminal convictions in the last 5 years? The answer might be no, but then you do a criminal record check and something comes up, and the answer should have been yes. So it's a question to talk with the candidate. It's a good way of understanding honesty and integrity, but also safeguarding the business depending on the role. So great way to start there. You can go further. You can go as deep as social media checks. You can look at things like credits, sanctions, global counter-terrorism and global checks there. Whatever industry, whatever role, there'll be certain sets of checks that you can do. You need to be able to build a package relevant to those candidates and your clients or your own organisation to make sure you're protecting everybody in the chain. But there are checks relevant for everything. But again, you don't want to do too much. It's got to be role relevant, right for the organisation, right for the candidate, and as simple as effective as possible. As you go through, there's different kind of checks we can look at. Qualifications are probably the biggest area of fraud in background screening. You can actually purchase them online and you can get nectar points for them, which is a bit alarming, but we did a little test on that. Studies have shown that 40% of job applicants falsify qualifications, 11% make up degrees entirely, and a 33% of graduates state inaccurate information on the CV. And I'm sure we've all seen some rather strange things on CVs. It is effectively a marketing document, and what we're trying to do is assimilate what they've said on the CV, what's on their LinkedIn profile, what they've told you all matches up, so you've got a nice timeline of who a candidate is, where they've been, and what they're going to bring to the organisation. If you want to check professional qualifications, you can. If you want to look at degrees, any other form of educational or academic qualification, you can verify that certificates are indeed genuine. And I think this is important. Certainly for if it's role relevant, you need to be doing them, but actually it's just a good question of honesty and integrity. If you're asking, have you done this? It's very easy to change a 2.2 to a 2.1 or a B to an A. And actually, is there any reason to be falsifying claims? You've done what you've done, you've been where you've been, and be honest about it. But some people do feel the need to try and hide things. So we've got to take steps to protect everybody in the chain. Again, employment history has probably changed over the years. It is now very granular data you get, bar certain safeguarding environments where you may get a little bit more information. It's very much a tick box exercise, confirming dates of employment, reason for leaving, would you rehire, perhaps salary, but even that gets omitted. People don't want to put personal opinion to a reference anymore. It will tend to go to HR and recruitment and have a central space there. So make it easy for the candidate to provide that information. Make sure you're getting information to the relevant referees, not just a line manager who will undoubtedly forward that on to HR recruitment. Make sure it's simple for a referee to engage. Can they confirm it easily? Can they communicate and say what's happened and don't feel like they're under any pressure? Can you automatically chase them with emails? Is it a manual process, making lots of phone call? If you can get a better process for this that gives you the information you need, perhaps for lead generation, but also for the candidate's background, it's important. It's a time-consuming area. It needs to be done to make sure a candidate has been where they say they've been, but it's not the only thing you need to be checking anymore. So make it simple for the candidate, simple for the referee, make sure your process is there, you're asking the right questions, and use that to form part of the full onboarding journey for the candidate and a full dossier of where they've been in terms of background history too. A good way to start is understand how you're regulated. Across every business, every industry, there will be different forms of regulation. Perhaps you're in healthcare and the CQC are governing you. Perhaps you're carrying card data and you need to adhere to PCI, DSS, again, education with Ofsted, DBS requirements as well, the Home Office. Just understanding how you're regulated across the business, how your clients are regulated, and what you need to do in terms of screening for them is important. And of course, you can build that within our platforms, and we can advise you on what you need to do as well. But I suspect you probably have a good idea of the compliance that you've got. It's just making sure that it's adhered to and understood across the business. So best practice in screening, what does it look like? There's no magic bullet that's going to fix everything, but if you look at the 5 key points there, it's a good starting point. If you understand from top to bottom the roles that you've got or the roles that you're recruiting for, perhaps build a risk matrix associated to them, understand what checks are doing, understanding who's responsible for the day-to-day running of vetting as well, and making sure that any checks are role relevant, the consequence of failure is understood, the timelines that you need to get people on board. Are you checking things internationally? Is there a lead time on a certain check that might affect start date? So just understand absolutely everything in there and then document it as well if you can. But document it in a way where there's responsibility for people. So who's accountable for updating your policy? Who's accountable for assimilating the data? Who's accountable for making the decision to hire? Who needs to know the information at the other end? Document it, write it, update it, and keep accountable. I've seen many clients where they've gone in with good intentions and then drifted away from policy and then left themselves open to risk. So putting things in place makes things a lot easier. You might be screening on a global environment. You might have different industry regulations to adhere to. Understand them, document them, and we'll assist you with what you can. Again, tech needs as well. We talked about automation. Have you got the right systems to get your reporting? Can you link into third-party providers? Can you integrate into your other systems as well? Is it a nice joined up journey for the business as well as the candidates and any referees too? And when you do need to pull off reports, can you easily satisfy the Home Office that you've done a right to work check? Can you satisfy your client that you've done the due diligence on this candidate? Can you improve your process by looking at how data is managed? Reporting and KPIs for me is super powerful. It's a good way to process, improve, good way to look at what you're doing, but you need the data at your fingertips to do that. And if you've not, perhaps look at ways that you can get hold of that data and manage your process moving forward. So we've got lots of clients, the majority of which are positive. There will be some negatives from time to time, but in general, our system is pretty unique in that you can design your process. One client, Premier Care, has put a case study which we can share with you at any point. They started the process, as many healthcare providers do. They had lots of different systems, there was lots of different checks required, with very heavy compliance from the CQC. It was a very admin-heavy manual process, lots of time wasted from the application stage through to placement. Errors can happen, checks may have been missed, which means that from a management level, they're leaving themselves open to risk in a very heavily regulated industry. So our system, once implemented, which takes 4 to 6 weeks, we understand how they work, what they do, and give them the training and tools they need to put their process in place. And what we've seen is a radically improved screening, which is form part of their onboarding as well, reducing admin across the board. The equivalent of an entire admin position, which is pretty notable. Candidate turnaround time is reduced by 2 weeks, which is hugely impressive. Compliance with the CQC and auditing, again, really valuable. So by using our systems and tools, they've improved their process and improved the way and the reports are coming back from their auditors as well. Candidate experience is improved as well. The candidate portal, which you'll see shortly, helps brand recognition, makes it simple and easy, one form for a candidate to fill out, and then all of the checks get done without multiple forms being filled in. We can share this full case study by all means, but lots of different clients in lots of different sectors and industries have really positive experiences by working with us. And actually, this for me is the only way you can really put your stamp on vetting whilst using a piece of software in the background to deliver exactly what you want to. So, an automated screening process, and what does it look like? Again, it will differ from client to client, but in general, the candidate will apply for a role perhaps via an ATS, which could integrate into a screening system or something else if need be. They may come in for an interview and provide the documentation for checks. You could use at this stage the right to work app that we provide. There are others out there as well, to collect information for right to work and perhaps any other documentation you need. So starting the process there and early, making sure you're compliant and that you can place these candidates. Providing a successful interview, they might get offered the role, subject to background checks. A link could be sent to a candidate there for them to fill out any further information, like an online application form or welcome pack with anything you need in there. Consent is granted for data to be used in background checks to begin, which they do automatically. This is then monitored by your team. Any red flags are alerted directly to you. Anything you need to know will come via an automated alert. As you go through, you're accepting and rejecting files and building a candidate report yourself, very, very simply and easily, so you can deliver a full candidate with all of their checks done, ready for placement to your clients or your own internal hires as well. To get this process, you can use certain systems, which we'll have a look at now. So the Active Screening platform is a pre and post employment screening tool, allowing you to design and configure your own process either per client or just across the board if it's just for your organization. So whatever you need to do, you can build it within the system. It gives a really good candidate experience through a fully branded portal, which we'll look at shortly, and with information really easy and accessible. Gives you better visibility and tracking over the whole candidate journey, but also improved reporting at the touch of a button too. Allows you to complete audits very, very simply. Collect any documents that you need from a candidate, or with a date and timestamp, and reminders if you need to recheck certain documents, perhaps a DVLA report or a visa that's being or a visa that's expiring. You get the same tools as a managed service provider by using a system like this, which gives you reduced costs and reduced admin as well. You can build your company structure and process through the configuration. So you're not working around a cumbersome piece of software, you're designing your process using a tool which will then be delivered in a smooth electronic environment. Managing documents is easy, as I mentioned. The right to work app comes hand in hand with this, and it's fully cloud-based and mobile optimized as well. So there's no excuse for not getting your background checks done. You can do it anytime, any place, anywhere. And the process should be simple and straightforward, and we'll have a look at that now as we go into some demos of the system. Before we do that, let's briefly focus on right to work. So right to work can be standalone or fully integrated into the screening platform. The right to work app is built so non-expert users can follow the Home Office list to obtain, check and audit documentation and build your statutory legal defence. We'll look at a demo in a moment, but it is built so if you can download an app and read, you should be able to go through right to work, and it's very, very simple and easy to get started with it. Integrations are available, API links as well, and you can configure it in terms of adding additional document types, tags, perhaps additional fields for things like job reference, and you can build what you need to in there. Ultimately, you're replacing the old process. When a candidate comes in for an interview, you sit them in their own office whilst you take their documents away to photocopy, you date and timestamp them, you come back in and you can commence your interview. You can now do this in an app really simply and really easily without leaving the candidate, and also check for fraudulent documents at the same time if needs be. It does come with a web portal which supports the digital checking at the moment as well, but it also allows you to push out invites to those on site. You might have a central team managing this, and you might have consultants or hiring managers out on site that you want to check certain information. So you can push out requests to the app and it will sit there in the device for them to action. And similarly, when the information comes back in, you can be checking over it, making sure it's correct. So you've got a single source of truth, but also you've got a nice audit trail behind that as well. And if any anomalies or errors do occur, you've got an audit trail of where they're happening and why. So you can then look to empower the people making those mistakes by training them and making them accountable for their errors. Because ultimately the consequences of failure are pretty severe. As I mentioned, fines of £20,000 or more per candidate, potential prison sentences, and many more as well. Of course, you want to report and have management information. The most instances of failure from right to work come not from the first check, but from rechecks that have been missed with perhaps a BRP card or a visa with an expiry date on that hasn't been recorded, and then their leave to remain or their right to work is expired. The system will alert you as to any changes and make sure that you can keep on top of all of that without having to do anything other than confirm that the dates have been entered on the app, and then rechecking when you need to. The app is both iOS and Android compatible. Everything is secured within the app. No data is stored on the phone. So it could be a personal device that you're using, and this can be managed by your own internal team, wiping devices and giving access to or not granting access if required for the apps. It works in both online and offline mode. You can build chains of approval really simply and straightforward. Ultimately, it's a really nice piece of kit that means that they've got the right to work, and without having to be an expert in right to work, you can use this app really simply and straightforward to adhere to one of the key parts of compliance. So that's a brief intro into right to work. Let's now have a look at the systems as well. So this is the right to work app. So when you open it up, you might be presented with an application, and it is sort of 5 key steps to do this. So the app's open and we're entering the details. So this is the hiring manager, recruitment consultant, interviewee or interviewer, whoever it might be, with the candidate going through their presence. So core details are entered, job role if needs be, first name, surname, and any middle names as well. Certain fields will be mandatory that you need to collect. The app knows this, and it will guide a hiring manager through what information is required, and if it looks like a mistake is going to be made, it will warn them. So we're entering nationality. A full list pops up from the background that someone's task internally is to update these regularly. Then any other core information that you might need. Things like national insurance can be collected if you wanted. You can then drill down on perhaps location, job role, business unit, however you choose to segregate your data, you can do that. So enter the core details, then based on the nationality you've selected, the app will present to the hiring manager which documentation is acceptable from that country of origin. You then take pictures of those documents. The app will help you frame them. It will scan it for legibility, which you confirm, and then collect any expiry dates. Now, there may be more than one document that you need to collect, so this process can be repeated as many times as it needs to be until you've got the right documents as guided by the app as you go through. What this is creating as it's filling out is your date and timestamp document of who did the check and when to go through the right to work. It then asks you the core questions you need for right to work. So you read them out to the candidate and give yes, no answers accordingly. And then you're left with all the documentation you need with everything there. And finally, it's a picture of the candidate. So the picture of the candidate can be skipped, but a lot of our clients do this to prove they're with the candidate at this point in time. You can use digital tools at the moment using Skype and video calls as well. But in a normal process, our clients tend to use it this way. Those documents can then be downloaded if needs be and used for things like name badges. In the back end is the web portal. So in here, you've got your KPI dashboard, your ability to tailor and configure the app itself. You can pull off reports, manage users, really simple and straightforward. It can be completely standalone or it can be integrated into the screening platform as well. But by following a few key steps, right to work can be adhered to. There is absolutely no reason to not have your statutory legal defence. And then we move forward. So if you've done right to work, great. We can now start with more screening as well, or depends on when you're putting in your process. So what we're looking at now is the overview screen of the Access screening platform. If you log in as an operator, this is what you'd see first of all. Now the overview screen is segregated by widgets, as you can see on the screen there. They're those little boxes. And they're snapshots in time that allow you to get where you need to be quickly and easily. It can be tailored. You can move the boxes around, you can add or remove them. There's a list on the right hand side of additional widgets that you might need. Key things like priority review, highlight red flags to you if dates are wrong with a reference, if there's content on a disclosure or a credit check is failing. It will alert you either in system or in your inbox of things that you need to focus on. You can track candidates through every stage from when they've received their form right through to the end. On the right hand side, you've got start a background check button, alerts, and any other information you need. As candidates go through the process, you can track them from waiting for candidate right the way through to the end, and it's segregated in the system, which you can access from the front screen too. When a candidate gets placed in the system, they get created an electronic portfolio, and in that portfolio is all of the information that you've put forward. So each one will have a different set of background checks in there, but it's one simple candidate file with every bit of information you need in there. So it's a workable area. On the right hand side, you have an at a glance view of anything that's going on, perhaps documents, references, any data checks that you're doing. It's all listed clearly of the checks that you're going through, and each one has a view button so you can see the progress and the information that you've got in there. Even collecting documents you can do, and what you're doing as information comes back in is building reports, accepting and rejecting files. To get there, we're going to have to get the candidate portal, which I'll show you shortly, but the point being, this is an electronic portfolio for each candidate that allows your teams to build an end report for a candidate, tailoring it in terms of what goes in, managing the documents, ordering them as you see fit, and using the information for references or data checks to have a nice, neat report for a candidate as and when it's required. And you know what needs attention by the red, amber, green status and any alerts you want. You can log actions against each candidate, so you've got CRM functionality. You might want to set yourself callbacks or reminders, or set one of your team members that. You can also email candidates from the system, upload documents, add additional checks, build reports, and then produce reports as well, however you wish to. And it could really be simpler. So each candidate gets that file that you work through. Other areas, you might have a set of documents you're managing. You might set yourself callbacks and reminders, which would sit in the Actions tab. So you've got nice features so you can manage screening really easily. We share all of our information and any updates to the system, so that's some product notifications, and then you've got a full reporting suite. Depending on what you need to do, you can build reports to look at background checks or financial information, or you can build your own reports with an XML data extract. Management and hierarchy structure is available with the management tab. In here, you can manage things like GDPR. You've got a supervisor dashboard to see what your team are working on, perhaps assign it to new users if they've got too much on their plate. Really simple and straightforward. In here as well sits the right to work integration, your DBS as well. If you've got your app integrated, they would sit here in the management tab without needing to go into the right to work system. You could start a background check from an existing right to work. You could link it to an existing background check, and it just adds it to the candidate file as a normal data check, which you can view. And you can see my right to work check here, so you can see I've not got any fraudulent documents. All simple and straightforward. And then also within here, you've got your DBS dashboard. So if you are doing criminal checks, perhaps you want to run criminal checks for your clients and offer it as a service, you know exactly where you're up to with any check. It might not make it go any quicker because the DBS can be the DBS, but by using this, you've got the fastest way of getting checks done, and the information is simple and straightforward. We'll look at the candidate portal in a minute, right? Say you've got a new client and you need to configure them. So you're going to add them as a brand, first of all. You can have as many brands as you want. And with each brand, you can tailor the look and feel and then build packages of checks. So client A might be here and they might need a certain set of checks. You can choose which documents need to be sent. You can add your users and permissions, build tags, add questions, tailor all the wording and the look and feel. Probably needs a more in-depth demo to go into that, but ultimately, configuration-wise, you build packages of checks using tick boxes, including any documents to send or request. Choose your rules for referencing, how far you want to go back, is it automated, any gaps that you need to adhere to. Put the process in place, and this can be on a client-by-client or job-by-job basis as well. Choose how often you chase candidates and build a candidate portal. This then creates what you're going to see now. So on a day-to-day basis, you wouldn't have me waffling on in the background. You come in, you check where you're up to with candidates, you start a background check. This brings up the ordering screen, which can be integrated into ATS systems if needs be. You choose from a drop-down the pre-configured workflows, enter the candidate details. You can segregate data using tags. If you've got lots of candidates to send in one go, there's a bulk upload tool as well on the right-hand side. And you might want to send candidate-specific documents, perhaps contracts of employment, and you can do this too. Existing candidates are stored, so any duplicates will be alerted, and you choose a completion date, or you've set an SLA in the back end of the system. Just depends on how you want to work. Then you start to notify a candidate, which will send a link to the candidate in their inbox, which will be a tailored email, but it creates a file for them first of all. At this stage, you can't manage a great deal apart from see where they're up to, but they've not given their consent. So they open their email, click the link, which takes them into the candidate portal. The candidate portal has the ability to add extra layers of security with two-factor authentication. So you can enter a code, which will get a text or a phone call to then allow a candidate into the platform. And this becomes their welcome pack or their application form, depending on when you're doing it. They adhere to GDPR, first of all, give their consent, the data can be managed, and then they're in. This is the candidate portal. You can tailor the look and feel with the logos, the color scheme, all of the wording can be changed, the list on the left, you can change to your own terminology, and lots more. And then they go through each stage really simply. Integrations would mean certain fields might already be pre-populated, but all this core data is collected. And you may notice if you've done things like criminal record checks, these fields are consistent with the fields on one of those forms. So it's one point of entry for a candidate that fills in all of their third-party checks as they go along. As they go through, you might need things like address history for certain checks. We've got postcode lookup. You enter your postcode, choose from a drop-down, and confirm the timeline accordingly. And we're building a nice, simple process from A to B of what the candidate needs to go through. You might want to look at things like qualification checks. And if you do, you can enter the details of what was achieved at university, school, college, the dates of study as well, and we can verify that too. Employment history, depending on what they need, you might have a different timeline. You can always give candidates guidance with these blue boxes. They simply enter the details of their employment, who they worked for, what department they worked in, position they held, and a reason for leaving if needs be. You can turn that off and tailor all of these things in different ways, but we probably haven't got time to go into a full-blown absolutely everything demo, but it gives you a good overview. Then dates to be confirmed, and this is the claim that the candidate is saying, I've worked there for this period, which is what you need to cross-reference against when the referee gives their details back. Then the details of the referee are entered. Again, name, email, contact number, organisation, department, position. There is a do not contact button if needs be, and that can have a drop down there. Perhaps they're still in their current role, and perhaps they don't want any communication to go to them before they're given their notice. Just depends on how you run your process and what you need in the system. That will then build a timeline. Options here, you can upload documents, you can add further positions, perhaps they've had lots of jobs at an agency, or they can add additional reference themselves. Lots of different things you can tailor. There may be gaps, and if there are, you can put a process in place where they might be giving a referee, they might be choosing from a drop down of where they've been, they might want to upload documents. Depends on how you want to manage it, but there's lots of different tools of doing it. The same applies with personal referencing too. You can add extra fields. You might want to add questions for perhaps multiple choice, favorite chocolate bar, uniform size, bank details, anything you need to collect that's not in the system. You can build these questions yourself really easily, and it's a good way to get further information all in one place for a candidate. Similarly, you might want to give them documents. This document has been made mandatory, so they have to download it and acknowledge they received it. Then you might want to collect documents. They can take pictures with smartphones. You could set a document to be downloaded, printed, signed, and then uploaded, just depending on what you need. Or you could go really sophisticated and implement a DocuSign procedure. So any documentation you've got, be it a contract, be it a multiple choice questionnaire, we can convert into DocuSign, add it to the system, and you can use that really simply and straightforward. Without leaving the portal, it generates a DocuSign form based on the information you've put in. There's lots of merge fields in there as well, so they can be very specific to a candidate. A signature is then dragged to where it needs to be done, and it will assume a signature based on your name, or you can draw one using a mouse, which you'll see me fail at quite miserably now. With a smart device, it's a lot easier, like when they come to your door with an Amazon parcel, with a mouse, a bit of a challenge. That document will now come with a certificate of authentication. So we've now given the document, given out information, collected it from them, and finally we get their consent. So the system reviews what they've filled out. Are you happy with it? Here's some T's and C's. Is there anything you want to change? Because it's the last chance you're going to get to change it before checks commence. If you're happy, great, press the green button and let's crack on. There might be some third-party checks. Additionally, you might have HCPC checks or DBS. There might be a couple of extra fields to fill out, but not many, because most of it's been populated by the form. If there is, candidates guided through and away they go. Then a candidate is in the process, and you can see the file I originally started has now been populated with the information we've filled out. This reference is pending at the moment. The referee will receive an email. They'll click on their link, and then they're taken into the referee portal, which again promotes your brand with your logos, your colour scheme in. The details of the candidate are presented. Any guidance is given in the blue box, and then they confirm dates of employment, job roles. If you want to build things like ratings, you can do. It just depends on your process. If you want to tailor the questions, that's an option as well. You can see I'm making a deliberate mistake here just to show how automation works. I put the dates wrong, the job title is different. I'm answering the questions very, very vaguely, of course. And then the referee can either decline or confirm the reference. Perhaps they have a process where they only give letter-headed paper, and you can look at things like that in the system and put in a process to get around that too. But once they fill this out, it will alert the system, and then we can see in a moment what happens. So reference confirmed. Straight back into the platform. And if I refresh this screen, you'll see that the status turns from pending to altered, even not alerted. So we know there's an issue there. You might have an inbox alert, you might have an in-system alert. So we can now see that the dates don't match and the job title doesn't match. So what do we do with that? Well, we may reject it, we may accept it, we might speak to the candidate. Point being, we know what we need to be doing at any point, because we've put the rules in place at the back end of the system. We can get information that we need. So you can see here, including in reports, dead simple and straightforward, accepting, rejecting with a reason there as well. And then you're left with a nice, neat file. So the final stage will be to then generate a report to give to your clients or to store against your own internal candidates. So you touch a button, you click download report, it creates a PDF file with the logos of yourselves or your clients in there, with all the information that you have decided to put in that final report in line with any compliance or business process and procedure that you put in place. So all gets presented in a nice, neat fashion. Any claims that you've asked to be put in there are available to look at. Any documents that you've included will be there. Excuse, this is a silly document coming up. But it's one neat file with everything you need to deliver screening across the board for your clients or for your own internal processes. So that pretty much is a very, very, very quick demo of the system. Hopefully you can see the automation there and how it works. I appreciate there's a lot of information in a short space of time on that. But let's move forward. So I've given you a lot of information there. Ultimately, for me, adhering to a good screening process will support onboarding for candidates, making sure you're getting it right, and having the optimum time to hire, the right level of checks for candidates, the right processes and procedure to be successful in this is important. And what we're finding is that in competitive environments, sometimes screening has been overlooked. So checks are being pushed to a later date. And if this is the case, in certain areas, it's okay, not with right to work, but you can employ someone subject to satisfactory background checks. But if it's not documented, you're going to struggle to take action on that accordingly. So if we're doing this speedy and we're going to get people placed at a later date, make sure it's done properly. Ideally, get them screened beforehand and make sure candidates and employers know why you're doing it. And the lead time might be longer, so you don't want to cause risks to them. However, there might be instances we need to place people quickly, so we've got the tools to help you with that as well. You might have lots of different technology. Is it working for you? Are you getting the most out of it? If you've got antiquated systems, if it's not really giving you what you need, but you've got a process that you've worked around, it might be time to have a look and see what you can do. Certainly recruitment is changing. Referencing should be automated, but we're looking at things like video interviewing, chatbots, and we've got lots of different systems and tools to help. I think really reviewing your own ones, deciding what process you've got, and then working with systems that will allow you to grow, but also put your own stamp on it is really important. Again, with technology, just because it looks pretty doesn't mean you necessarily need it. Is it delivering something for the business? Is it improving your process? Is it improving the candidates? Is it improving the way you report? Is it giving you a chance to grow and improve the way you do things? As I mentioned before, making sure you've got your own policies documented, but understanding that and having accountability for it is imperative. Also, where are things going wrong? What are you struggling with, and what do you need to fix? It might not be this system that helps you, it might be something else, but talk to experts out there and let them guide you. Only you know what's wrong with your organization, or what could be improved, to put a slightly more positive spin on it. So work with software providers, work with experts in the industry, and if we can help you, great, we will do. If you are investing in new technology, is every stakeholder engaged? I think from those using the system right the way through to those making decisions on the system as well, everyone is important in that chain. Every stakeholder is an important cog in the machine that is background screening. So there's lots of different resources available. We'll share this information, of course, but we've got lots of resources online, lots of webinars, white papers that you can use, some really, really useful information, actually. I'm not sure why we put so much information online, because it helps people do it on their own, but have a look at them, see what you think. If once you've read them you think there's some ways you can improve your process, feel free to chat to us, engage with one of our team, and we'll give you advice and guidance. You might find out that you've got absolutely everything spot on, but there's resources there if you need them, client or not a client. It's there, have a look, see what you think, and any questions or queries, give us a shout. We are constantly evolving and developing our software. Our product team are outstanding, to be frank. We've just reskinned the Right to Work app. The system is getting a upgraded look and feel in the next few months, but more importantly, we listen to our clients. So I run a network of partners with agencies and help them grow their revenue through screening, but we implement systems and features that will help them. SMS features that are coming in, nice features for your clients to log in. We understand the industry and what's required, so we listen to our clients, and if it's a good idea, we'll put it on our roadmap and we'll improve our system moving forward. And we engage with our partners the same way, corporate or agencies or MSPs. We want to know how we can improve, so we're going to deliver things better for you and then ultimately your clients as well. So we've also got Access All Areas, slightly different this year. Normally it's an absolutely brilliant event in a usually great venue. I think Wembley Stadium was last year as well, which was fantastic if any of you went down there. We're doing it this year. We're hosting our first virtual trade show. It's called Access Areas Online. We want everyone to come down. We understand now more than ever the recruitment firms are looking for solutions to support their business as the market starts to recover. That's why our tailored recruitment agenda is designed to address how as a leading industry supplier we can help you stay agile and operate with maximum efficiency. So feel free to join us for the recruitment focused sessions between the 28th of September and 1st of October. Whether you're a customer or looking to just make the best of software, or you're interested in hearing from industry experts and top tier staffing firms about their cloud first strategies, we can help you. But even if you're just looking at recruitment technology, there's a session for you. The program will include our visions for the future and dedication to customer success, an exclusive preview of Access's cloud-first, mobile-first solutions for recruiters, product masterclasses and demos covering screening, recruitment CRM, pay and bill, profile, and volcanic websites. We've got a panel discussion that will be truly engaging with an industry-leading guest speaker as well. We'll look at some of our new systems. We've introduced early pay. If none of you seen that, it's a really, really cool piece of kit. Have a look at the information, pick and choose what you want to see, and then feel free to join us. So that's it. Now, I've talked for a long time there. If there's any questions, feel free to fire away now. Okay, so one quick question that's come in is, how has the screening process changed during the pandemic, and have we adapted to that? I think everyone was a bit worried about that at first. The Home Office, I think, we're a little bit slower than the DBS to change, but we've seen a shift to more digital checking for ID, for right to work and DBS. For us, it wasn't so much of a change because you've got the options to do what you need to do, but I think the process for our clients was a little bit scary at first, but ultimately you can adhere to what you need to do by using a platform like ours, and the guidance we've got with our support team to help you as well. One more question there is how do agencies typically use the Access screening tool? It differs. Some agencies use it purely for their own internal recruitment. Other agencies use it to help their clients and add value. This is what we've seen a big growth in, agencies offering a vetting service to their clients, and we support that wholly. There's the opportunity to deliver compliance checks, to differentiate yourself from another organisation and potentially grow an extra revenue stream by working with Access screening, or it can just be your own internal compliance tool. Ultimately, what it's trying to do is make your process better so you can place people, earn more money, and keep the organisation protected. I think that's pretty much it. So I'll let you all go for the day. Thank you very much for your time. These are all available. We can share the content after the event. If you have any questions or queries about screening, or you want to come along to the Access All Areas online event this year, please feel free. We are there to help. If there's anything we can assist you with from a recruitment perspective, certainly from a screening perspective as well, please engage, and we'll do our best to assist you. But thank you very much for your time. I'm Adam Lindsay. Have a great day.